Hey, what's up, learners? Jamie here from CLA, Community Learning Alternatives, and this is What the Tech Wednesday for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. We talk about technology, computers, the internet, mobile phones, and everything in between. Links for all of the full-length videos featured in our What the Tech session will be included in the description below as well. Starting off today is a clip from the latest video from our friend Steve Dotto over at Dottotech. He's not actually our friend, but we use his videos and content so much at CLA, he feels like a friend. Steve fills us in on the latest with everyone's new favorite video conferencing app, Zoom, and in particular, how to make sure your Zoom meetings are private.
Zoom and video conferencing fails. Some of them are epic. We've all seen them by now, streaming through on Facebook or on YouTube. The lady in the Zoom call bringing her notebook into the bathroom, or this dude who, as funny as it is for the guy, seeing the pure joy on his co-workers' faces as he stands up and he didn't wear pants to the meeting. And dude on the left, I hope at some point I can bring that much joy into somebody else's life. Hopefully they aren't too embarrassed by it and they can laugh along with us at them. But these fails are just one aspect of what's happening in the video conferencing world. There are plenty of other far more serious issues relating to our online security dealing with video conferencing. And that is what we're going to be taking a look at. It's one thing to be slightly embarrassed by something happening within your own environment that causes you some embarrassment and causes your coworkers a little bit of joy or your viewers a little bit of joy at your expense. But there is now a phenomenon that they're calling Zoom bombing, where people are jumping into meetings with the intent of disrupting them. And they're disrupting them in some very disturbing ways. Racial epitaphs are being flown. We see lots of video with people exposing themselves and threats being made. We see a very ugly side of a disruptive nature happening when we don't set up proper defensive mechanisms into our Zoom calls or any of our online calls in order to prevent unwanted attention from people who just want to disrupt. Now, in a lot of cases, the meeting is something which is fairly social and fairly lighthearted. But increasingly, we're using Zoom and video conferencing for far more serious conversations. For example, PhD students are now defending their papers before a jury. It's the culmination of a decade of academic work. And for something like that to be interrupted by some petty vandalism of somebody jumping in and disrupting it could be very devastating to the poor student that is presenting their content. I'm just going to cut in here for a moment. I've been editing today's video that I shot earlier today, but I have to tell you what happened just after I finished recording the video that you are now watching. I opened the Zoom room. You will see in a few moments. I will be opening a Zoom room in this video to show you some of the menu options. And I opened my own personal Zoom room when I did that. And once I finished the recording, I left the room open for a few moments while I was organizing things and saving files, etc., and getting everything organized, when all of a sudden I heard a voice on the other end of the Zoom room. And lo and behold, somebody had Zoom bombed me live at that moment. They had come into the room. Now, it turns out that they were actually a fan of the show, and they picked up my personal ID number from a previous video that we posted here on YouTube, and they were letting me know that they could do it, and that the number was out there in the wild, and that I should do something about that. So they were actually trying to help me, which is interesting. But that is the real world. I mean, it is art impersonating life at this particular point. As soon as we finished recording the demo, which you are watching right now, I got Zoom bombed. There are three areas I think that we can increase our security in Zoom. We can increase our privacy, we can increase our physical security, the security of the meetings themselves and the people in the meetings, and then also we can improve our etiquette so we don't make silly little mistakes that tend to embarrass us. And we're going to begin the conversation with talking about establishing privacy, not letting others into calls that are not wanted. And it all begins in your Zoom settings.
From virtual weddings to work meetings, we all suddenly have to be on camera in our homes. And as a video director and host, Becca Farsace from The Verge is no stranger to having to be camera ready at all times, even in imperfect spaces. Here are some tips and tricks to become the video call MVP you were meant to be. And we can say we're friends, right, Becca?
Hello, internet friends. Welcome back. Where's my coffee? Shall we? Today's lesson might seem simple, but I have video called with enough friends this week to realize that y'all could use some serious help. looking just a little bit more professional and definitely more presentable on video calls. Like a lot of people, I use Zoom, and that's mostly because trying to figure out my Skype password that I made when I was 18 has been like... But with the uptick in Zoom users has come an uptick in privacy concerns. User information has reportedly been leaked to third parties, and ID numbers are easy to guess, which is leading to Zoom bombing, which is now a legitimate term. And privacy advocates even see some concerns with how Zoom evades macOS administration controls to install itself on your computer. So even though I'm super comfortable with Zoom, I've also found some alternatives, like House Party, WebEx, and even creating a new account for Skype. We have a video up right now about all of Zoom's privacy concerns that if you're interested in learning more about this, you can check out. Now, before you can be on a call, you gotta set up a call. And there are great Slack apps for Skype, WebEx, and Zoom that allow you to quickly create video call invites within chats. And if you use Google Calendar and you want to install the Zoom for G Suite extension, that'll allow you to select Zoom as a video option when creating calendar invites. Now that you've set up the call, let's talk about looking presentable on camera. Now there are some of you that are probably like, Becca, how are you qualified for this? And to that I raise exhibit A, B, and C. These are 3 screenshots of me in meetings in 3 separate locations, looking pretty good if I do say so myself. I mean, number 1, love the look. But number 2, I could use those as profile photos. First and foremost, my favorite thing in the whole world, get that good light. Open your shades and let all that natural light pour in, but don't do it dirty by sitting with your back to it. I recommend having your largest light source either right in front of you or no more than 45 degrees from directly in front of you. Also be aware that your computer screen might be the largest source of light, so adjust that too. You don't want to be blowing yourself out looking like a little ghosty up in here, come on. All right, now that you got lighting, you gotta get your camera at the right angle, and there's only one option, eye level. I'm saying use a book, use a stool, use literally whatever you have to use, but get the camera at your eye level. Angles, baby! All right, I know we're having fun, but it's time to get serious. You can check yourself out, but do it before the call starts, not at the beginning, the middle, and the end, or just throughout the whole thing. You know, and I know, and we all know that you look the best on this video call. But we also all know that you're staring at yourself. It's not only distracting to you, but it's distracting to everybody else too. You want to show up to the meeting already looking good. For me, that means opening up Photo Booth before the call even starts, and making sure my background is like clear of dirty clothes, the angle is good, and well, I look like the damn champion that I am. There's also the option of using a background to completely block your surroundings, and y'all are getting like real creative with these, but here are my favorites. Yo, so good. In the settings of most video conferencing apps, you also have the option to have your video and audio off by default when you join a call. Since I know I'm showing up with incredible video, if I do say so myself, I leave my video turned on, but I am sure to have my audio defaulted to be off when I join a meeting. And you should too, but more on that later. Also in the settings of WebEx, Zoom, and Skype, you have the option to have a video preview of your video pop up before you join a meeting so that you can do one final check to make sure you look incredible. Now, when I'm on a Zoom call, I've gotten into the habit of just hiding my video entirely so there's no temptation whatsoever. Give it a try, guys. It's actually freeing. Now, the flip side of that is that it's very easy to forget you were on camera. Don't pick your nose. Or maybe do. I don't know. Up to you. Oh, and of course, let's talk audio really quick. Most of us don't have a ton of control over this, but being in a quiet place typically makes for better audio. What is the vibe? Also keep in mind that your headphones might have a better mic than your computer. I have Bose 700 headphones, Galaxy Buds, the ones that came out in 2019, not the Plus version, and of course, the mic that's already built into my MacBook Pro. So I use the audio testing tool within Zoom to test out all of these mics. Okay, and these are the Bose 700s. How do these sound? And the Galaxy Buds from last year, not the Pros. How are they? And this is the MacBook Pro's built-in internal mic. I'm a little shook right now. I truly expected the Galaxy Buds to flunk this test, but they're actually not as bad as I thought. And the other 2 mics work great as well, so I'm in good shape, man. All right, friends, stay professional, even when you absolutely have not gone out of your sweatpants for like 2 weeks. Hey!
We've already seen Disney Plus and Apple TV launch in the past 12 months, and HBO Max will be joining them soon. But into this crowded streaming landscape has stepped Quibi, a new video streaming service that's putting mobile first. Except, we're not really sure why.
Nobody asked for Quibi. Nobody, that is, except for Jeffrey Katzenberg, the co-founder of DreamWorks Pictures and the famed Hollywood producer. Where a lot of other mobile video startups have failed, like Samsung's forgotten Milk Video, yeah, that really existed, and Verizon's Go90, Katzenberg figured he could really succeed by pouring money and a ton of talent into well-produced mobile shows. At this point, he's already raised $1.75 billion, and I wouldn't be surprised if that gets even higher over the next few years. At CES in January, Quibi also revealed its core technology, Turnstile, which basically allows you to flip between portrait and landscape video modes on the fly. You know, without any stuttering, depending on how you feel like watching your video. So if you're stuck on a subway or something and you don't have much room, you can watch it in portrait. If you want to spread out and see the full image, you can watch it in landscape. I was intrigued by the technology at the time, and I also talked with the company's chief product officer, Tom Comrade. He used to be the CTO at Pandora, and he was chief of product at Snapchat. So this is a guy who really understands mobile media consumption, right? He was excited by the whole project, and I'm sure he would be after spending years working on it, but it was really hard for me to judge until I got a look at some of the shows. And now after spending several days with the app, I can't say I'm very excited. Sure, Katzenberg and crew managed to create some quick bites of content. That's really what Quibi stands for, imagine that. But I can't see how these are any more compelling than something on Netflix or Hulu. And honestly, the really slick production values of all these shows doesn't feel as intimate as the sort of DIY aesthetic you get from YouTube producers. So really, it doesn't fit anywhere in our current media landscape. Why exactly would you want to spend $5 a month for this stuff when you still have to deal with ads and you can't even watch this content on other screens? It's really all trapped on your phones. Even the 90-day free trial that Quibi is offering for the month of April doesn't seem that compelling, to be honest. At CES, Quibi CEO Meg Whitman told me that they're trying to be a third category of video consumption. So the sort of video you'd watch while commuting to work, and they're not really trying to compete with Netflix. But honestly, that is a really hard thing to sell today, especially when a lot of us are going to be trapped at home for several weeks, potentially even months. I also had a really hard time following her logic after watching several episodes of Dishmantled, which is pretty wild. It's a cooking show hosted by Titus Burgess, and it basically stars some random chefs who are blindfolded, put in this like container area, food is exploded on them, and they have to scrounge around the floors and walls and figure out what that food is and then cook it within the 5-minute episode. They actually have 30 minutes to cook it. It is kind of wild. It is like an over-accelerated version of Chopped matched with like a wacky Japanese game show where they actually punish their contestants. Are they okay? I wasn't too entertained by it, I wasn't educated by it, and the guest judges just really seem to be there to have a good time. A lot of them just seem a little tipsy. I'm not really sold on this idea as a show. Honestly, it just feels kind of embarrassing for everybody involved. It feels more like a parody cooking show from 30 Rock instead of something you'd find on a legitimate network. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure some people will find it entertaining in a trashy TV way, but 5-minute episodes, that's not enough time to get the drama you really get with reality TV shows. And yeah, I'm just not really feeling the hook there. And I'll be honest, the entire endeavor of Dishmantled and really Quibi itself feels like a massive waste of time and resources and talent while we're facing a global pandemic. In an era where people are losing their jobs and waiting hours in grocery store lines, all the while fighting and avoiding an invisible enemy, wasting food in a TV show like this just doesn't really feel right. And while watching this show and plenty of others, I didn't really actually find much value in Turnstile, actually flipping from vertical to portrait modes. It's cool, it works, it's pretty seamless like Quibi is saying, but portrait mode still felt really weird for me. Everything felt too constrained. It felt like I wasn't seeing enough of the action, even though the camera framing is actually pretty decent. The best way to still watch these shows is in landscape mode, because you get the full view of what you're seeing. Maybe I'm just an old, maybe that's just what I'm used to seeing, but to me that feels like the best way of communicating these shots. I think vertical video works really well for amateur footage, for when you're like FaceTiming with your friends or you're watching an Instagram story or something. But for highly produced content, it just seems wrong. One other thing, Turnstile can also be used for interactivity. At CES, I saw a brief clip from one of the upcoming Quibi movies called Wireless, where in the landscape mode, I was able to see the scene as normal, but when I flipped to portrait, I was able to see exactly what that character was seeing on their phone screen. And that kind of reminds me of like DVD multi-angle scenarios, just really cool interactivity, maybe even a lot like some of the live-action video games we saw during the 90s. It's cool. Not many people are taking advantage of it at this point. Wireless is coming sometime later this year. We don't really know if any other creators are ever going to take advantage of this capability. And to be honest, it doesn't feel like something you can really bank a whole service around. I think Quibi's biggest flaw at the moment is that none of the content truly stands out compared to what you've got on Netflix and Hulu and YouTube. Let's take Chrissy's Court as one example. It's a decent riff on daytime court shows, but you know, those cases never really felt that great on Judge Judy and other things. It feels even more inconsequential here. It really just feels like the people who are appearing on the show just want to be on Quibi. They want to be in the same room as Chrissy Teigen. John Legend shows up for some reason. It's not funny enough to be entertaining on like an absurd level, and it just feels weird and very privileged too, because a lot of times Chrissy will just end up paying the legal fees for everybody. That's fine, I get it, not exactly entertaining. There's also Most Dangerous Game, which is one of the service's movies in chapters. It basically breaks up movies into like 6-7 minute chunks, and you just watch them a little bit at a time. It's a remake of the classic human hunting movie and book, except this time it stars Liam Hemsworth and scenery chewing Christoph Waltz, as usual, to be honest. And the show itself is fine. I find it really entertaining, but I'm not sure why I'm consuming this on such a small screen, and I want to see this narrative in a broader way. Being contained into 7-minute chunks just really isn't working for me. There's also Thanks a Million, which is a show where celebrities give away $100,000 to people who've had a positive impact on their lives. It's meant to be uplifting. I don't know. I just found it a little more cringeworthy rather than heartwarming.
Everyday acts of kindness connect us in surprising ways.
There are also a handful of documentaries and daily news shorts from outlets like the BBC, Telemundo, and even TMZ. But again, none of these felt like any different than content we already have available. I'm not quite sure what the use case here of just watching these things in quick chunks. You already can get news briefs on the radio, on podcasts, on YouTube, on your TV. The value of finding it on a really exclusive mobile app, not quite sure what's there. Quibi is launching with 50 shows and it plans to have 175 different things this year. And you can also look forward to some exclusive content from the likes of Guillermo del Toro and Steven Spielberg. To be honest, while those names are compelling, I'm not exactly excited to see some of my favorite filmmakers producing content that's going to be trapped on this platform on tiny screens. It just feels like a huge waste of time. And yes, let me be extra clear here. Quibi's shows are only viewable on mobile. I tried mirroring my iPhone to my Apple TV with AirPlay mirroring. It didn't work. The video is copy protected. There's no Chromecast support built in. I've talked to Quibi. They say right now they're focusing on mobile. Maybe eventually they can offer you some way to cast stuff to a bigger screen. And I think that would be really smart because some of this content is compelling. You do want to share it with people. I was trying to watch a couple episodes with my wife and we had to crowd around my phone. Meanwhile, our 55-inch TV just sat in front of us idle. This doesn't feel like the future of content at all, and if it is, I don't really want any part of it. And then there are the ads. For the $5 entry-level subscription, Quibi says you'll see a couple minutes of ads every hour. The problem is, since you're watching so much content, you'll see a lot of tiny ads. So I was trying to watch an episode of Dismantled. I sat through a 10-second commercial for that. And then when I tried to download that episode for offline viewing, it played another commercial, even though I already saw a commercial for that episode. It just felt like they were really nickel and diming me when it comes to my time. And really, it does feel odd to be paying for the privilege of watching ads. I know Hulu does this as well, but that doesn't make it any better. And honestly, Hulu has a much better library of content. You can pay $8 a month for the ad-free subscription, but at that point, you're better off just spending $1 more a month for Netflix and a much more robust library of content. Quibi is the worst sort of overfunded, faux innovative startup. It pretends to be changing the media industry, but it's not actually solving any problems for consumers or the landscape as a whole. What it comes down to really is that nobody needs Quibi. Not in the way you need your daily YouTube fix or need to catch up on your favorite Netflix show. And it could just be that nobody wants mobile-only video in general. You know, we do stare at our phones all day, but we also hop between devices, and we use our phones while watching stuff on TV to chat with our friends. And, you know, that's the entire point of the second screen wave that we've been seeing for the past decade. We're used to media adapting to us, and I really don't think anybody wants to see middling content that's trapped on the smallest screen that they have.
That's all for this week for What the Tech Wednesday. If you have a comment or question, leave it down below. Check us out on Facebook, and you can reach us there as well. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Stay well and keep learning.